Hello everyone. I thought that I would take an image and show you how I go about editing it. I use both Lightroom Classic and then I use Photoshop. And the reason I use Photoshop is because I've been using it for years for my design work, and just in the last couple of years I have expanded into editing my photos and taking more interest in photography, and I just feel much more comfortable using Photoshop. So I thought, look, I will show you what I do, how I think about what changes I'm going to make, because I think that is some of the design element of editing your photos after taking them. And often when you're out taking the photos, you're not necessarily, especially if you're if you're photographing dogs, you can't necessarily get the shot that you were imagining while you're out there. Especially when you've got a dog that is racing towards you with a stick, the main thing that you're thinking about is, can I get up quick enough before I fall over? So the idea that I had here is I wanted to capture her running towards me with a stick, and I've got this happy little image here, and the idea I wanted is that I wanted to have those trees in the background so that I could create the effect of the sunlight coming through, and yeah, look, it's quite a good capture. I think afterwards I now wish that I had had my shutter speed a little bit higher, but at the same time I actually do like this little bit of movement that I have in her paws here. It sort of shows that she's moving towards me. I have got her head and the stick in perfect sharpness, so it's good enough. It's good enough. It's one of those where you're like, oh, and it helps to soften a little bit. Sometimes some of the images that I have of her, she's so sharp compared to the rest of the image that it looks like she's just been pasted on there. So a little bit of movement sometimes can actually give you the effect that it is a real photo. Okay, so what I first see when I see this image is that I don't have enough space. And these are things that I'm going to change in Photoshop, and I will show you that. But what we want to do is just at least get some of the colors a little bit nicer. It's actually not a bad histogram here. You see a lot of these colors are actually, the photo itself is quite well exposed, and most of the colors are actually in the middle here. However, I tend to like images a little bit warmer, and I do see that it's quite blue in the background here, and there's blue on her face. She's a blue fawn, so that is a natural thing. Where would I start? So sometimes, see this area here, I would feel like I want to lighten that up a little bit. So I'm just going to increase the shadows just ever so slightly, like so. And another thing you can do is, a lot of people go up on their contrast. I tend to bring my contrast down a little bit, and then I'll often use my dehaze just to add a little bit of depth, and then the blacks just a little bit. And that's just me. And look, there's so many different ways that you can move these sliders. I mean, seriously, just get in there and move stuff around and play and see what all these different sliders do. You don't have to do a tutorial to muck around with sliders. You're not going to ruin your image. You can always click reset, bang. Now, a little trick that I learned recently is, if you want to make sure that your white balance is pretty accurate, you can click in here, but then grab this and then click in here again. And the trick that I learned is, you want to try and find a neutral spot in the image. So this is quite neutral, this down here. And if you see the numbers at the bottom with the R, G and B, the red, green and blue, it sort of helps to try and get your white balance spot on. is if you try and get those numbers as close as possible. So using the arrows up and down key, I can start moving that temperature up and down. So see, it needs to be slightly warmer to try and get those all the same. And look at that, they're all 75, 75, 75. So I've just moved that temperature scale here up just a couple of notches to bring this to a closer white balance. And by doing that, all you're doing is setting yourself up with a neutral base, and then you can start adding all of your fancy stuff later. What else can we do? So this is also where I will often do all my cropping. And so, for example, I know that these trees aren't quite straight, so I'm just going to turn that slightly. And I actually use this lines here because I, more so than imagining that the horizon is straight, I feel like I want the trees straight in this particular instance. It's the most straight part of this image. Now the other thing too, you can see that in my rule of thirds, it's not quite right because you really want the main sort of point, one of these points on here, on her, and then maybe even the stick over here. And this is why I'm saying I haven't got enough space around the top here. But what I am going to do is, I do want to lock that in. What I am going to do is just bring this up a little bit over here and start getting it closer to where I would want it. And we're going to extend some space around her later. I'm going to also just bring this out here for the moment because I'm going to need it. You'll see why. I'll bring this down a bit too. Anyway, that will give us a bit of room to be able to increase the top here, and I'll show you how I do that in Photoshop. I'm going to click done on that, and then I think I'm about ready to move to Photoshop. However, what I want to show you is you do have all these other HSLs, so hue, saturation and luminance, and you can do a lot of stuff with these before you even go into Photoshop. But because of what I'm going to do in Photoshop, I'm not going to bother doing that here. And you can get all presets and everything to be able to use in Lightroom if you don't want to use Photoshop. But my skills in Lightroom are very basic, so that's why I tend to go and use Photoshop, because I can use layer masks. I find it's a lot easier to use my brushes and everything in Photoshop with all the different masking and all that sort of stuff. So, but what I wanted to show you is a sharpening technique. I learned this months ago, and I've been doing it ever since, and for me it works so well. Now Lightroom automatically adds some sharpening whenever I open up an image. I don't know why, but anyway, I'm going to bring it up to around about 80, and then I bring the masking to about 50, and then I bring the luminance to about 20. And if you just have a look here, you can just see how it's just taken those edges a little bit sharper. And then you see the little bit of noise here. The luminance actually helps to smooth that out a little bit. And you just got to be, especially if you're doing skin, you've got to be careful how far you take these types of details. But I found from this little tip that I learned of someone on YouTube somewhere, I'm sorry that I can't mention who they are, I can't remember, but I found that to be a really good just sort of ground base to start with. So I mean, have a look at how sharp this stick is and see how nice and smooth that background is now. I think this looks fantastic. So if we do a move up here, if we go on and off, you can see the little bit of grain there. And we turn it back on, you can see it's sharpened the edges and smooth that background just a little bit more. Okay, so now is a good time to head on over to Photoshop. So I'm just going to right click and click to edit in Photoshop, and it's going to open up Photoshop now. Bum, bum, bum. All right. So let me just mention a few things. So I think something that is important with images is to clean them up. And by cleaning them up, what you're doing is you're looking for distractions that sort of get in the way of your main subject. But and then also little things like eye sort of stuff, and there's this little bit of a stick here that's sort of a distraction. We're going to get rid of that. I'm just going to zoom out. So, but first things first is I want to show you how to extend the image, the edges, and make that larger so that we can then position her better in the image. So we're just going to go to image and image canvas size, and I'm going to just, it doesn't matter what it is at the moment, I think I'm going to make it 16 inches, and then we'll just do like 23 over this side, and I want it from the bottom because I've got enough at the bottom. Click OK. Let's make what was I doing? Go to image canvas size, and we're going to go from the bottom again, and I'm going to make the width about 26 and click OK. Alright, obviously you know how I added that, took off some of that cropped on the edges. I probably didn't need to, but hey, look, I'm going to be teaching you some stuff here. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to come in to the sides here like this, and I'm just using the select tool, and I'm going to come to edit and content aware fill. I think this is the most amazing smart sort of software that is available for this type of thing. It always amazes me. Now it looks a little bit funny, but that's okay. We're going to be mainly cropping it off, so I'm happy to go with that for the moment. It's going to help me extend these trees. So then let's just do the other side over here. Image, we're going to go to, edit, content aware fill. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. I always forget that I need to flatten it each time because it adds it on a new layer in case you don't like it. So then I'm going to go back to edit, content aware fill, and it's going to try and work out this side. And look, it's not too bad. It's trying to work out the grass there. Anyway, it's all good. It's enough for our purposes. Click OK. I'm going to just move that across a little bit because I must have left a line or something there, and move that. See how great that is that I've got that layer. So I'm going to just do that, and then I'm going to quickly do a really quick mask here. So I've got this selected. See, I've got the little boxes around it, and then using a black brush, and it's a soft one. So if you have a look here, it's soft. I've got the hardness of 0. I'm just increasing the size a little bit so that's nice and soft. And whoops, normal opacity up, and then just going to bring in that edge down, and then we'll just move that across. I'm just using the arrow keys to move it across, and that sort of to hide that edge there. That's right. So let's just bring that, let's crop that in now. Image and crop. That'll do for the moment. Alright, so the next thing, we're going to have to flatten that, flatten image, and now we want to extend the top part. This content aware fill, I love it. I love it. Here we go. Watch how good it does those trees. Now let me show you something. Sometimes you'll have your main subject close to an area where you want to do your content awareness, and it will actually pick up parts of the main subject as well. So what you can do is you just tell the content aware tool that I'm not interested in you using this at all. I don't want any of this type of part of the image to be considered. So you just use that. And you could even say, let's say it was trying to pick up some grass and put it up here. Or actually, let's say, see how it's extending this tree trunk thing here. Let's say we didn't want that. We can go like this. Doesn't make sense, but you'll see what it's going to do. So it's re-evaluating the situation, and it's decided just to make it blurry. So if we zoom in, it's gone, oh, you don't want that texture? Okay, I'll just blur it and make the color similar. But we do want that texture, so I'm going to put that back. So I've just changed it to the plus. So now you'll see how it will re-evaluate it again. There we go. Isn't that so cool? I think it's fantastic. Anyway, so you're going to click OK. We're happy with that change. Processing. And there we are. How good does that look? So I'm just going to flatten that now. So now I can come in and you always want to do your cropping right at the beginning, because once you start adding fancy stuff, it can affect the way that you're going to do your design. So now I'm going to bring in my crop and I'm going to change the ratio. I think we'll go 5:7. Switch that around. You know what? And you can do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter sort of what you crop it to. See, I should have gone a little bit higher on those trees. So you know what? We can. See, because I want to get this corner on here. Got the corner on here. Would have been nice to be able to have the corner on like that as well. That's where ultimately I would have liked all these corners around there. So obviously I need to open up this way, don't I? And that's going to look better. So let's do that. So let's go image and canvas size, and we'll take it up to 18, give myself more room. Let's go this way. We'll change this to 27. Click OK. You know what? The thing that I'm not going to like about the content aware tool right now is now this section here is not really going to work as well. So let me show you another trick that we can do. We'll do the content aware fill here first and see what it does with all the grass and everything. Actually, I won't take that so far. Let's go like this. We'll go to content aware. Let's see what it does. See how it's starting to get messy now? So what I'm going to actually do, I'm going to come in and I'm going to say to it, I don't want you to think about this section here. Let's see what it does. Let's see if it tidies it up a bit more. See how it's got all that repeat stuff there? Yeah, no, see, it's not working with this one anymore. So we're going to cancel that. And I'm going to show you the old way. This is the old way that we used to do these. So what we can do is I'm going to, and actually we might use a patch tool. So this is the patch tool here. And oops. So I'm actually using a Wacom tablet from my old design days, and boy, it really does even make it so much more easier when you're trying to edit photos. So I'm going to bring this across like this. That looks not too bad. How cool is that? Once we start adding other effects, you'll see that that won't look so bad, but what we can do, we can come in and just grab that and grab another one. So we could even come sort of in here. That's good work. Let's see what it does with that. That's all right. Okay, so the other thing that we want to do is let's grab some of this grass over here and put it over here. So I'm going to come in like so, edit created a new layer. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform. We're going to flip it horizontally, bring that across over to here, like that. And then we'll put a mask on it, because by masking, you can do so much to this image, to this section, without using the eraser. If you use the eraser, you have to, and you make a mistake, you have to undo, 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 undo. But if you use masking, best feature of Photoshop, you can quickly erase stuff, and if you're not happy with it, you simply paint back over it. Like, it's just super. So, okay, so we're just going to come in and let's just, you do not have to be super awesome at all this, because the whole idea is to be able to do these things reasonably quickly if you can. You see how it's just starting to blend in there? And the important thing is, you see how we've got this not blurry, but this is blurry, because obviously the plane of field here was a little bit closer than over here. So let's just bring this down a little bit, and we want to try and, it really needs to be around about there. What we'll do is we'll actually blur this little bit here so that it looks like it's all on the same plane of field. That's very important when you're doing composite type stuff or making a few changes like this. It's just one of those things you want to consider. So I'm still just blending it in, getting rid of some of this stuff. And essentially I'm reasonably happy with that. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. So we're just going to flatten that now. And now we're going to take the blur tool, whoops, and just soften this little area here so that that blends nicely. And there we go. So we've got that. Okay, now we need to go back to that content aware. We're going to pull this top part up. I always go to the wrong menu. Content aware. And it's going to work on that. Yay. So click OK. Working. It's thinking. Super. And then we'll flatten that. So let's go to our history and we'll just take a little snapshot and I'll show you the before and the after. We've got, wait a second, let me just move that. We've got before and we've got after. It's pretty cool, hey? So now we've got all this room to be able to crop the image. And it looks quite realistic. It's not as if we've taken, you know, I don't know, put like magic dust there yet. We might do later, who knows. So let's go into the crop and see if we can get that sort of look that I was looking for before. Remember how I was saying I really want these to be sitting in the corners. There, I'm liking that. So I've got that on that corner of that stick there. And let's bring that even in further there now. So just now I've got this room to play with, you know, to create my composite. Create my composition is the word I wanted. There we go. So let's see what that looks like. Cute. I think it's cute. I feel like there's probably a little bit too much at the top there. So let's maybe put it on her nose. So let's try that. Move it around. Whoops. Undo. So if we put it on her nose, no, let's bring it down maybe. It needs to be on her mouth. Right there. That's not too bad. I think that feels better. Click OK. Yeah. So now I feel like there's too much over here. So this is sometimes, you know, you've got to play around with things until you're happy. So let's bring it over here just a touch. Never know. with these. Maybe if I just, see, that feels like there's just enough grass on each side. Got the points very similar to, very close to where I want them. All right, I think that's pretty good. All right, because then we're going to add some glow up here and it will help to diffuse all of that. All right, so the next step is cleaning up. So we've expanded our area so we can get a nice crop and get the composition really nice, or to work in the way that for my particular eye, how I like it. The trees are all nice and straight, but if you have a look around, there's some distracting elements. So these pine cones, for example, I find them distracting. I also find this little bit of grass here distracting as well, and this little piece here. So, and even this little tiny green bit here. So I want you to see what happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in our history, we're going to take a snapshot at this point. So snapshot 2 is, we're going to call it before cleanup. So we're going to do the cleanup, and I'm going to show you how easy this is. Like, it is so good. So remember how I was telling you how you want to keep your planes the same. So using that patch tool, we're going to go around this pine cone here, but the only way that I am going to move it is either right or left. And the easy way to do that is to hold down your shift key and then, whoops, start moving it and then hold down your shift key, and that will keep you, you can move your mouse anywhere and it will keep you on the same plane. So we're going to move it across here and hit that, and you see how it's done that. So sometimes it will leave a little funny edge like that. I just quickly grab it, move it again, and then just let it blend in, and it will eventually sort of blend in again. So now let's come around here, do this pine cone, I'm going to move it over here like that. And remember saying how these leaves here would be distracting for me. See how that blends? See, now for me, that didn't work. See how it made it all too soft? So I'm going to show you another technique and click the undo. And what we want to do there is we want to use the stamp tool. So I'm just going to zoom in so that you can see what I'm working on. So here, I want to make sure that that stays nice and crisp. So using the stamp tool, and I'm going to resize my brush, bring that down. Now you can, if you want to, change the hardness of it, but I'm just going to see how it looks as it is. So you want to hold down your Alt key, and you want to just press it very sort of near, because we've only got this small area here. So you press that, and once it's got it, then you can go, okay, how can I line that up? So I'm lining that up. See how I'm lining that horizontal stick up there? Do that, and now I can sort of fake my way into lining this up with the others. If the alignment moves, all I have to do is hit that Alt key again, and I line them up. Now look, I'm being really particular here. You do not need to be this particular, because in the grand scheme of things, no one will be looking for this. But it does become more important when you're like working with shapes that really do need you to line things up. So we can do the same with this little leaf here, and we'll just quickly, I'll show you how quickly I can work it. And you do want to be careful that when you're doing stamping, you don't end up with a repetitive stamp. So sometimes, see how I've got all these dots here? I'll just go and grab another one and just plonk it on there. So here I've just lost some of the details. I'm going to come back and throw this stick through here again. Oh. And now another thing we can try and do is a content aware fill. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But let's try it, hey? So I'm just going to grab the lasso tool, go around like this. And we'll go to the edit and content aware. And yes, actually didn't do too bad of a job. Probably did a better job than I did with the with the stamping tool. So let's click cancel and we'll undo that, and let's undo all that stamping that I just did and see how the content aware tool fixes it. See what it does, hey? Why not? There we go. So let's do this. So we'll get the lasso. I'm going to go around here. And this actually is where having a Wacom tablet really comes in handy. Alright, so edit. We're going to go to content aware fill. Let's see what you do. Check it out. No stamp tool required for that. That's pretty good. I'm going to click OK. That's quite magic. Beautiful job. So let's flatten that, and then we're just going to do a little bit of fixing up here. So we'll get the stamp tool. I'm going to click Alt. I'm going to grab it here. Just want that stick to stay like that, and the rest I'm happy with that. Okay, so let's just grab these other little things. I'm going to show you another little one. You can use this little healing tool. It's a spot healing tool. See, look, if you ever hold your mouse over something, now it's not going to work. Healing brush tool, and look, if you look here, it's even got a little video. How cool is that? So I'm just going to come in, and I just want that green gone. So look how cool that is. So I'm just going to move this across, get rid of that one, get rid of that highlight there, like so. So let's have a look at a whole bit on screen. And then I want to also fix up this little stick here. See, this is going to be a little bit harder to do. So often I will do like clean up little stuff around the eyes and all that sort of stuff, but her eyes aren't looking at us in this particular image, so we don't have to worry about that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a content aware fill for this, I think. So I'm going to come down, grab this bit first, and I've found that when you've got sort of different stuff like this happening, it's better to take little areas first and see how it goes. Where you've got some change, so that's not that good, so I'm not too happy with that. So I'm going to click cancel. I might just try this little bit here, see how it deals with that. That worked really good, so it's put that little smudge in for me and everything. So we click OK, and we'll flatten that. And then how about, I think we will try using the patch tool here. Let's see what that does. If I move it this way, that's not too bad. I'll grab that and I'll move it this way. Maybe need to grab a little bit more of it. Move it down here. Not too bad. So then let's use the patch tool again. That worked not too bad. We'll move it over here. That's pretty good. Gotta remember, this is a very small detail that we are editing here in the grand scheme of things, but everything helps to clean things up. But it's not something that you have to be super careful about. It doesn't have to be super accurate. And let's just tidy that a little bit up. All right. And overall, I think that's not too bad. It didn't take too long. Fit on screen. Then you wouldn't even notice it now. Okay, so let's take another snapshot and I'll show you what the difference is between not doing a cleanup and doing a cleanup. And then this also helps you see if there's anything else that you want to clean up too. So this is before, all those little distractions, and this is after. Pretty good, hey? It's just those tiny things. See, actually that there caught my eye. It's distracting me. Even that maybe. So let's just quickly go in and tidy those up as well. So let's go before. And this will not be after, so let's delete that one. Take another. Oh no! Uh-oh. I need to take another snapshot. At this point. Snapshot. Okay, so before and after. Before and after. Yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that. Okay, now we are ready to go on to the next phase. So, I have installed I like to use the greater than Gatsby actions. I saw someone using them a bit over a year ago and I was like, oh my gosh, they're just so good and make things so quick and easy. And there's so many companies that offer different actions, so it really comes down to what your personal style is, or what you want to, I don't know. Often I think it's a good idea to watch so many different people and then sort of everyone has their own thoughts and feelings about how, what images they're attracted to and in what style they're attracted to. And so I think, it doesn't matter if when you're learning that you start sort of following what other people are doing and try to replicate it, because that's how you learn, and then you eventually eventually evolve to find your own way and your own technique of doing things just by playing and experimenting and what you end up liking. So anyway, after all that little blabber on, I ended up installing the little sampler kit that comes that you can get from Greater Than Gatsby, and I thought that this could just, it's something that you can have a little bit of a play with. There's actually not a lot here compared to, like, the Innocence collection for me is just super. Like, it's got so many different little things that you can add, and you don't have to think about all the different layers and all the different elements that to be able, because I'm going to show you a few things that you can do just manually. But when it's just there and you just click a play button and it just does it, and then you move some things, it just makes your life so much easier. Anyway, so I did install their free ones. You can head on over and you'll be able to save this image and have a little bit of go, install these and have a bit of a play. So in their recommendation, they want you to place their primary foundation down first. So we're going to just press the play button, and I don't quite understand all the little things that it's doing here. I'm just letting it do it. So let's have a look at the before and the after. And so it's added some contrast. It's probably added just a slight little variance of some color variance, and by the looks it's sort of, tried to pick up some highlights and things like that. So we'll do it off again, turn it on again. Yeah, it's definitely deepened some colors and pulled out some of the shading. So if we have a look here, there again, so there. So then they've got their artistic enhancements, and these are examples from their different collections. So I'm guessing that it's like these are some of their main most popular type of settings that people might be using from those particular collections. So you can play them all. And so let's just do that so you can then see all the different options. So we're going to click the play, and it's going to go through and play all of them. So and actually they actually leave little messages, so when you're playing an action, they might say to you at the end of playing that action, okay, now you need to use this type of brush at this type of opacity to be able to get the best effects from it, which is pretty cool. I like that they do that. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to turn each one on and off and just see what it does. So this one warms it up. And then this one enhances the greens. It's sort of like a nature one. And then, so what that does is it gets rid of those gaudy yellow colours. So then this one just brightens the whole image by the looks. This one gives it that muddy sort of look. And these are pretty good sometimes. So don't like look at this and go, oh, that's horrible, because I'll show you what we could do with that later. So then this one, what does that do? It just brightens it all by the looks. Sort of, yeah, it brightens, but it also dulls the yellows, which is quite nice. There we go, another warm one. What's this one? Oh, this is quite a sort of cinematic type one. Palm Springs. And an ombre. All right. So, for me personally, I think I really like the Giant Peach, but even if we go to the Joplin one, I'm going to show you what we can do with that. So I'm going to start with the Giant Peach, and then I'm going to come down to this Joplin one and I'm going to turn that one on as well, but I'm going to reduce the opacity to around about that. So that's one thing you can do. So you can have multiple layers happening, and then you change the opacity, and don't just think that you have to use the opacity that is sort of designated. There's so many things that you can change on these. You can even, if you really wanted to, you can open up all the different features that they got in here. You can start turning off these things and, you know, changing the way that it is. You can even come in and change the color of the haze, so we could change it to like a more of a yellowy color like that. So I'll do that. So there's so many things that you can either leave it the way it is if you really like it, but you can even just get in and change it. The thing is that they've put all of these layers and elements in place, and then you can just go in and play with them. You're not set to what their initial idea was. So what I wanted to show you is what I like about this one is that it softens the background even further, but I don't like how it softens Lexi. So I'm going to use the mask layer here. I'm going to come in with my black, and I'm going to turn it off. Wait a second, what are you doing? I'm in the wrong one. Brush. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off, Lexi. So by going over it, I'm taking it off, Lexi, and you don't have to be super duper careful. I'm just going to bring it down the stick here. Like so. Now the other thing is I don't really want it all over here, so I'm going to bring it all around the front here. But we've got it in those trees behind. See? Like this. Doesn't that look good? Whoops. Like so. So you don't have to use it for your full image. And then here, I think it looks good. Anyway, that's just me. So next thing that I wanted to show you is now we can start adding some of our own features. Like I've decided I don't want to use these. I'm just going to delete them. I'm just using the delete button actually. Done, done, done. So now let's add a glow in the background. And the best way to do that is to use a gradient. So we're going to do a gradient, and then we're actually going to change this to a radial, like so. And I'm going to change the color to be more of a golden color or like a yellow color, because I'm not into just a white light. And our whole image is a little bit more, see how I've got that sort of a similar color to this now? So I'm going to click OK. And you want to move this whilst your gradient fill, because if you click OK at this point, you can't move it anymore. That has to be open. But I'll show you what happens if you accidentally click OK and then you're trying to move it and you can't move it. All you need to do is double click on this and it opens up that gradient fill again, and you can move it again. So let's move it to around about here. And I want to increase the size a little bit. I'm going to do maybe 120. So I want a bit more of a glow. That looks good. Now I don't want the glow on Lexi. So we're going to come into the gradient, into the mask. And the way that you know that you've got your mask selected is you've got those little squares around them. See? Because if you were on here, you're going to be trying to paint on it, it won't work. But on here, we want to paint on that. So I'm coming into black. So remember, white means that it's a revealed, and black means that you're hiding it. So kind of come in and just be careful. I don't mind if it's a little bit over her head, but see how I've just added that halo around there? We don't want that. So I'm going to bring that back, and it can just touch that light area on her head a little bit, and then it's not going to look funny. Back to black, and we're going to come down the stick. Come down on her body here. So one thing that you'll notice is, hang on, we've put the light source over here, but clearly the light was shining sort of here, because this is this part of her that's all lit up. So we're going to use some dodging and burning. So that's essentially lighting and darkening of the different areas, so that we can sort of change where that light source is now hitting her. So we'll do that now just to make it easier for our future changes. Like so. Anyway, that's not too bad. Okay, and I feel like there's a little bit of highlight there. Okay, so what we want to do is create a new layer, and we're going to go into edit, and we're going to go to fill, and we're going to select 50% grey and click OK. And then you go like, but what we're going to do is we're going to come down to soft light. We're going to change the opacity to about 50%. And then, and then using a black, I'm going to just put in here, I'm going to do shadows. And then we're going to copy this, edit, I've just right clicked on that, and we're going to, where is it? Where is it? Duplicate. Where have you gone? There we go. Duplicate. Woo! Click that, and I'm just going to change that to highlights. Alright, so in the shadows, we're going to change to black. We've got our black brush, and we're going to change the mode up here to darken, and then bring the opacity right down to around about 20%, because it just allows you to slowly build up the layers. And you'll see it'll look like I'm not really doing anything until I turn it on and off, and you'll be like, oh wow, okay. So I'm just going to increase my brush a little bit, and then I'm going to just slowly add just where I think I need to add a little bit extra depth. And really, you do not have to be an artist to do this. You just essentially follow what's already there. Now I'm going to come over to the highlights, and I'm going to switch to white, and I'm going to switch to lighten. Still got my opacity at 20%, but now I can sort of create some highlights over this side to make it look like that's where the sun is. So I'm just going to that. I can even do a little bit on the stick here. It's a little bit of a cheat, I know, but it just helps to portray with the look that we're going for. So I'll show you before and after. Doesn't that look amazing? Before, after. How cool is that? I think it's great. So I'll take them both off and then put them both back on. Super. All right. So we now have our base sort of colors here. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I had my leg in an awkward position. All right. So now let's bring in an overlay. And yeah, we'll do that first. Okay, we're going to place embedded, and let's do this one. This is a little sunburst. Click place, and it does look a little bit scary at first because all of a sudden you've just put in this image with a big black background. But what we're going to do is we're going to change the way that this layer merges in with the layers underneath. So I think we can make this a little bit bigger. Click OK, and we're going to change the layer style. So in here you've got all these different ways that a layer will interact with the layers below it, and we want to select the screen for this particular thing. And so if I turn this on and off, you've now got this golden glow between those trees there. And I think we'll just move that up like that. Yeah, it's not too bad. I feel like I want to warm up the image just a little bit more. And so we're going to use the hue to do that. But you can see how cute that already looks. We've added that shine there. If it's felt too bright to you, you can change the opacity a little bit to allow those trees to pop through a little bit more. Yeah, that's not too bad. I like that. Like so. And let's just, I'm going to, at this point, because I feel like that's really, really bright, I want to warm it up a little bit. So let's bring in a hue and saturation level. And we are going to warm things up. So one of the things that you can do is I'm actually going to warm the greens to begin with. So I'm going to grab the green, this little hand tool here. I'm going to select the green and see how it actually creates this little area that you're going to be affecting. It's actually changed it to the yellows, but you can actually extend this into some color areas that you want to have your changes affect, or if you want to be really specific, you can bring them right in and really close to each other like that as well. So, but let's sort of, I want to include the greens a little bit more, so let's just move. So this is like the main area that it's affecting, and this is, think of this as like, it's sort of like gradually softens that area as well in this sort of little section here. Think of it more as like a gradient. So yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. So if you look at how it now affects, you see that those are the areas that it's picked up, and those are the areas that we're going to be affecting. It's great to do wild slides like this. But so I just want to see, I don't really like super yellow or super green in my images. Depends on what the look is, but these particular woods had this beautiful brown roads where the pine cone leaves had fallen and dried, so I sort of want the grass to not be so green, not be so yellow, but just be a little bit more muted. So I only ever so slightly made that change there. And then I'm going to also, I think, just bring down the saturation very small amount, like so. And we might even brighten it a little bit. I feel like I've gone maybe too far. I want it a little bit like that. I can always turn it on and off. See, it's only a very slight change, but just takes that gaudiness away, in my opinion. That's just my style. There we go. So I'm happy enough for that. I still feel I want to warm that up a little bit. What I might do is actually change the gradient color. So let's come in here, and we can come up here, and let's see if an orange looks a little bit better. So maybe, oh, see, that's not too bad. See how you can always go back and make a few modifications to something. Click OK. Yeah, I like that. I think also I might reduce the opacity. So let's bring the opacity down. Oh, that's better. We've got a bit of detail happening. That's a bit better, isn't it? We can actually then maybe bring the opacity of that sun flare up a bit. That's where I went wrong. I forgot to change the opacity of my glare. All right, that's not too bad. That's looking all right. So now I want to add a bit of brightness. I want to make sure that she is the main subject. At the moment, she's sort of getting lost. She's still a little bit dark. So what we can do is add a levels adjustment. And if you only want to work on a small area, a little tip that you can do with the masking is you can press Control-I and it inverts it to the black. And that way you can now use your white brush just to display what you want to come in focus, what you want to work on. So I'm going to just use my white brush and I just want to do this. Oh, I actually need my opacity up. Oh, keep forgetting that when I do some different changes, I've got to check up the top here. So anyway, coming over, we're going to just go down like this. And now I'm going to come over to the details. And I want to bring up some of the shadows a little bit. I'm going to bring down the contrast, up the brightness a little bit. And you can see how that has sort of helped to sort of make her shiny in a sense. So if we turn that on and off, it's only such a small adjustment, and that's the thing that I really want to make key, is all of these adjustments are tiny adjustments and they slowly build up to build your image. If you went and did something crazy like this, it's just too much. And it just looks crazy, it looks weird. Can I undo that? No. Yes, I can. There we go. So just see how just tiny, it's such a small change, but it makes enough of a change to make it worthwhile doing. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to add a little bit of saturation. So I'm going to come in with my curves layer, and I'm going to just bring this down just a little bit. Whoa, that was too much. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Just bring it down just a little bit. Help that contrast. And is it enough for what I want? Yeah, I like that. But it's too much on her. So what I'm going to do is use my, my black, but I'm going to reduce the opacity to around about 50%. Like so, and using the mask layer, I'm going to take some of that off, but I'm not taking it all off because I'm only using it at 50% opacity. So, and then maybe a little bit more on her face. Each time I go over it, obviously it's going to affect it. So we have a look before and we look after. And that's pretty close to finish, but how about we add one more layer of, we'll bring in some dust particles just to make it look a little bit more realistic. She's had some dust come up here, so I think we could do some dust particles just in here where the sun rays are. So we'll go import, place embedded message. I've got my overlays. I'm going to go to dust and I'm going to go to white, and I don't want it to be too crazy, so I'm just going to have a look at what these ones are. And I just got these off Etsy. They weren't too expensive. Of course, if you wanted to, you could make them, but you know, sometimes it's easy to not reinvent the wheel. I think we'll go with these ones and see what they look like. So there we go, and we might just reduce their size a little bit, like that, and change it to screen mode, see how they look. Oh, they look pretty cute. And I think I'm going to duplicate that. There we go. And when I duplicate, I'm going to edit, I'm going to transform, I'm going to flip horizontal. And we might just move that over, I don't know, be sort of up in the corner there. And sort of, I'm not 100%. There we go, that looks better. Alright, so now I'm going to come in, I'm going to change the opacity, bring in the opacity down, make it a little bit softer, like so, and then I'm going to add a mask, and I'm just going to make sure that I don't have any sitting on top of Lexi, so I'm just going to go over that. And then, whoops, back to do that again. And I don't want any over the front of the stick there. I don't like that one there. Let me just check this one as well. Do a mask. Make sure there isn't any over Lexi. Alright. Okay, so now I don't like these ones that are on the green. So I'm going to come into my mask again, going to get rid of those. And the others I don't mind, but let's give it some variance. So I'm going to come in and change the opacity, and I'm just going to push some back. So we've got a little bit of variance. I don't want them so dark. Oh, wrong layer. I don't want them so dark over here. I don't like that one. Wrong layer again. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Might change the opacity a little bit more. Now, let's say you didn't like them being white. Just giving you just a little bit more of an option. So let's say you didn't like them being white and you wanted them to be a bit more golden or something like that. What you can do is you can create a hue layer. So go to the hue saturation, and we can say, okay, we want them to be sort of like a yellowy color. We're going to click on the colorize. Don't worry about the whole thing. We're going to, so what we're looking for is what are the color of these, right? And they're a bit more of a yellowy color, so let's select that. And now the trick is, what we want to say to Photoshop is we only want this particular layer, this particular color that we've selected, to affect the layer underneath. So what we do is we click on this little button here, and now it's only put that yellow over those little dots, and see how they've actually blended in a little bit nicer than the white that was there before. So we can duplicate that for the other layer as well. We'll go and put that up there, and then we've just got to click that little thing again, and it turns those that yellow color as well. And essentially I'm pretty much happy with this. I think this is cute. I wouldn't go any further. And what you could do now is, if you've got a whole series of images that are like this, you could now open up your next image, and remembering what you've done here, all of these different actions that you've taken, you actually come into your actions panel and you create a new group. So you can create a new group, and we can say Lexi Stick, for example. Click OK, and then you click, then you click the new. So you click a new action button, click record, you can call it whatever you want, and then it's recording. So now anything that I do, it will record it. So for example, I can come up here and I can create a new layer. So it's making a new layer, and I can then go and fill it. Let's fill it with the grey. Click OK, and then I can set it to soft light, set the opacity to 50%, like so, click return, and then I would click stop, or I would do my next action, because all I want to do is create that layer and have all of these different layers set in place for me to then come in and do the other work with. Or you could even change the name if you wanted to. So for example, let me show you with one that I did earlier. So I'll turn all these off. So this is an action set that I created earlier, Lexi in the woods. I don't need to use the eyes on this one because her eyes aren't facing me, but I've got my base set up. So I press the play button. And it's just going to go through and play all of the little elements that I used. So I'm going to click continue. I'm going to now move my radial up here somewhere, like so. Click OK. And it's going to continue doing the different things for me. So now, let me just, feel like I just need to put all this into a group that I'm not using at the moment. And hide that. So now I can come into my layer of the shine. I can quickly come in and I just quickly take it off Lexi, like so. And then I've got my hue saturation and I want to take that off Lexi as well. Stuck on that opacity thing again. Oh. And then I was going to come in, turn that off, take that off there. And you can see that you can, all of a sudden you can start doing things really quickly. So then I've done those little things, and now I'm ready for my next one, which is the overlays. So I click on the play. It even pulls in the overlays that you had. So now I can come in, I'm going to just switch that off, and I can move my overlay here. Move that over to here. Now I can put my dust particles somewhere. I'll just leave them like that for the moment. And then I've got my hue saturation, which is meant to be sitting on those dust things like that. And then, for example, my next one, this is just really quick, is the final touches. Click on play. So in the dodge and burn, oh wait, I need to turn that off. So I've got this one, which is going to, needs to come off Lexi, just as a little cute pearl background, softens things. And then let's bring in the levels. I'm going to just invert that. And using the white, just going to quickly go through like that. And then make any changes that I want to make a little bit brighter. And then bring up the depth a little bit. Just check it, always check. A little bit brighter again. Remove. Like that. And let's do some shadows so that we can fix the light source into darken, change the opacity down, and got this. I'm going to reduce my brush size just very quickly, adding some depth. And remember, you don't need to be an artist to do this. Essentially, you're nearly following what's already there. You're just adding some extra depth to it. And now let's do it with the white. Change it to white, change it to lighten, and this is where we're creating the change, the main changes, because we want to pretend that the light is coming from this side a bit more. Every time I go over it, I'm adding a little bit extra because I've got it at the opacity of 15. It allows me to be a bit more blasé in the way that I apply it, because that's what you need to be able to do. If you're doing editing like a whole group of photos, you don't want to be spending too long on each photo. You spend your most time on your first one getting the look and feel you want, and then this is supposed to be able to try and help you do things faster. So we look at before and we look after, before, after, and you've got this little highlight here now which helps to make this look more realistic. Okay, so now we've got our contrast, and I feel like I just want a little bit more. I also feel like I need a little bit more warmth, but that's okay. So yeah, I think that looks pretty awesome. Let's group this together so that we can have a look at the other one and we can have a look at this one. If I go like this, I wasn't prepared to do this, but that's all right. We're doing it now, so are we? If I go like this, so this is the one, the actions that I already had, and then this is what we created together. Are you going to work? You didn't work. All right, I need to turn them on, that's why. There we go. A bit warmer, quite a bit warmer, but that's all right. So that's the one that we did together, and that's the one that I had done earlier. Aren't they cute? So and you can see it's a completely different look, but it still looks cool. Yeah. So there's so many possibilities. There's so many things that you can do with Photoshop. I mean, I love it. And yeah, if you can get some presets and get some overlays, there's so many things that you can do, and it does help to speed up things. You saw that, yeah, we can do a lot of layers just by using the different features, but so much easier just to press a play button. Someone else has put those actions together for you, and then you just go in and modify them for your needs. So hopefully this has been of some help. I've spent so long doing this, I can't believe I talked way too much. But if it helped you, please leave me a thumbs up, and I might look at making more of these. So I will have a link to the raw file of this image so that you can go right from scratch and practice. So yay. Oh, the only thing, and I'll leave some links to the overlays that are available on Etsy, because obviously they're not mine, so I can't include them. But you can possibly find some free stuff if you have a look around as well. Okay, hopefully this helped. Thank you, and I will maybe see you again in the future.